At the Supreme Court today, an historic upheaval. In a sweeping ruling that overturned a half a century of precedents, 5 justices ended the right of American women to choose abortion under the Constitution.
It was major news when the Supreme Court vacated its 1973 ruling of Roe v. Wade, which effectively gave America abortion on demand.
Abortion is stripped of its special constitutional status, because there's no other medical procedure that has constitutional status, and put it back in the hands of the people. So instead of having to convince 9 justices on the Supreme Court, we say to the other side, and we say to our side, our job is to convince the 330 plus million people of America, and that's where the government power belongs. Anyone who's in public office governs only with the consent of the governed.
Well, we can now legislate on this issue where it was legislated before 1973 at the state level. And fortunately, there will be states that will have very radical abortion laws that are very similar to Roe versus Wade, in some cases maybe even worse. New York State, for example, is worse. And there'll be other states like Louisiana and Utah, and I can go through a whole bunch of states that will not allow abortion at all. Texas, example. And so it'll be a hodgepodge, but look, that's okay.
Some states like New York, New Mexico, and California want to become major abortion-providing states. There's even a push now for California to put abortion rights in writing in their state constitution. But critics would note that every abortion still stops a beating heart.
Well, we have to realize that when it comes to abortion, we are talking about the actual killing of people. So I say it's not just about beliefs, it's about bloodshed. It's not just about viewpoints, it's about victims. We are actually trying to stop the killing of human beings, the smallest human beings in our midst.
Well, I have a question. In a nation of 345,000 churches, in a nation of more than 500,000 ordained clergy, in an America where 100 million adults profess to be Christians, how could that be that in such a place we're aborting 3,000 babies a day, roughly, much with federal subsidy? How could it be since 1973 that we have killed nearly 63 million human beings made in the image of God?
Meanwhile, apart from politics and long before Roe was overturned, Christian people from various denominations have been working hard to provide loving alternatives to abortion. They've done this for decades and will continue to do so that much more.
I think the fact that over the last 30 years we've seen an explosion of ministries out there who are meeting the needs of women who have unplanned pregnancies, and so many of those women are choosing life.
How can we as the people of God stay silent with the atrocity of abortion and still want to pursue justice?
It's a Saturday morning in South Florida, and Pastor Rob Pacienza and other ministers and lay church leaders are out for a prayer walk as part of the ministry called Love Life.
The whole mission of Love Life is to unite and mobilize the church to create a culture of love and life that would result to an end to abortion and the orphan crisis. We believe that God has called the church to shape the culture. He called us to be the salt of the earth, the light of the world, the city set up on a hill. He called the church to be the pillar and the foundation of truth.
Love Life is a ministry that is all about activating the church. In other words, the church is the one who has the resources to solve the abortion problem, the orphan crisis, but often it's not spoken about from the pulpit. We help churches to find their voice, but also to find their role.
Well, here we stand today in front of Astor Women's Center, which is an abortion business that's been here for 19 years. And every Saturday, 40 Saturdays in a row, we lead the local church on a 1-hour mission trip in their city. We bring them out to do 3 things: to pray, to walk, and to sing. It's not a protest, it's not a picket, it's not a march of any kind. We pray, we walk, and we sing, leading and mobilizing the local church to actually be the hands and feet of Jesus in the world.
One couple that is involved in Love Life are Mark and Holly Douglas, members of Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church.
Mark and Holly, there are a lot of things as believers in Jesus Christ that we can give our lives to. You have given your lives to fighting for the unborn in our region. Why?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we just feel like we were Christians, we were followers of Christ, and Nazi Germany in 1943, what would be our responsibility? So when we see lives being lost with a baby in the womb, it's our responsibility to do something. That's something we say, everyone can do something. It may not be serving in the capacity that we are, but whether it's giving of your time, your talent, your treasure, we can all do something to see an end to abortion and support these families.
Holly, explain a little bit about Love Life in particular. What is so unique about the mission and the vision of Love Life and what you're doing in South Florida?
So what we love about Love Life and it's really stood out to us and made us say yes to this mission was that it's calling the church and it's calling pastors to speak on life from a biblical perspective, and then it's a call to action. So it's the vehicle for the church to go out on a short missions trip and go into their city and bring the hope of the gospel and the help of the local church to those that are hurting.
And their ultimate goal is to save lives, and such was the case of baby Serenity, a little girl saved from the abortionists in March 2021. To Serenity's mother, Tatiana, news of her upcoming baby was unwelcome at first.
It was kind of like a big surprise when she came, so I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. And then my youngest child was under the age of like 1 and 2 at the time. So I was like, having 2 small babies was a little too much. So I kind of went and scheduled the abortion.
Tatiana's mom, who had qualms about the abortion, nonetheless had driven Tatiana to the clinic. And outside the clinic were pro-life volunteers praying, including Holly.
And we were praying and Tatiana drove up and she was visibly pregnant. And so one of the pastors prayed, please God, no.
My mom went outside and that's when she met Miss Holly and Pastor Carmine them. And they kind of talked to her and told me like, hey, don't do this.
We spoke to her mother who brought her to the clinic and explained to her what we do and that we're here to help her carry her baby through the pregnancy and beyond. And so we encouraged her to go inside, get her daughter Tatiana, and she did.
I walked outside the clinic and I did not get the abortion.
Included in the Love Life ministry is a mentoring program for the mothers who choose life for their babies. Holly Douglas is now a mentor to Tatiana.
Since I met her, she always been there. She's been a call away. If I need anything, she's always there. She have my back, and as well as she saved Serenity, she helped me with my other 2 daughters too.
The beautiful role of the mentor is you agree to walk with mom for 1 year through her pregnancy and 1 year after.
In the mentoring process, Holly Douglas encouraged Tatiana and Xavier to get married to provide a more stable commitment for their family. And they did. Today, baby Serenity is a living reminder of how the church can make a difference in trying to foster a culture of life.
I'm glad that I chose life to save her. She's precious, she's nice, she's a goofy baby, and she brought me so much life.
We're blessed for having her and for Miss Holly and the church and Mark for being there for us.
We've ministered now to over 2,600 moms that have made the choice for life at the abortion clinic in the last 5 years. These are people that showed up for scheduled abortions. They didn't think about it. They showed up for a scheduled abortion and they made the choice for life. And over 90% of those moms would tell you that if the father of the child had simply supported them, then they never even would have thought about having the abortion. So it's time for men to rise up and to take our proper place of responsibility to protect women and to protect children.
All we're saying is protect the unborn. Why? Because they are verifiably human. The evidence that they are human is no less than the evidence that you and I are human.